Women are, raising the bar, crossing the, overcoming the roadblocks, the barriers, and financial industry is not an exception. Lendingkart has a similar philosophy where they want to, encourage talent, they want to encourage intelligence, and it's not about gender. So it's an inclusive environment.
RBI has also acknowledged the need to safeguard and protect the privacy rights of the customers.
You look at the blockchain. If there is no digital footprint, how will the blockchain work? How will the AI run if you don't have the data? So I think the key for any industry today is to anonymize the data.
Both of us, who are considered as the roadblockers, that we are making the lives easier for the people, right, within the organization. This can't be done. Why? Because the legal head compliance have said no. Up to the time, AI is not taking the place of the regulators and the judges. We are going to be indispensable.
Hello and namaskar. My name is Ram Deshpande. I am the host of a new podcast series called The Lendingkart Show. In this series, we will be speaking with our leaders from Lendingkart, the people who are driving innovation and disrupting the finance industry like no other, and doing it as one team. I also recommend you to listen to our earlier podcast series, which was hosted by our colleague Kinney, where she had interviewed all our leaders. Those podcasts are available on our YouTube and Spotify channels. We take that discussion forward and get into further details of Lendingkart and the fintech industry overall. Now let's go and start the Lendingkart show. Finance is an industry that is governed by a variety of regulations, all to ensure that consumer interest is never compromised. Some recent examples include digital lending guidelines, RBI proposals on penalties, and many more. So what is required to comply with these guidelines, and why is it so necessary to ensure that we are always compliant? We have with us today Kumudini, who is our legal head, and Kiran, who is our compliance head, and they are going to help us de-terrorize these two big words, legal and compliance. Welcome Kumudini and welcome Kiran to the podcast.
Thank you, Ram.
Thank you, Ram, for having us today for this wonderful session.
It's so great to have you both. And regulations and compliance is a favorite topic of mine because of the background that I have with all the marketing and everything that I've done in the past. But before we dive into that, I would like to begin this conversation by saying that it's so fantastic to see both of you, senior women leaders in our company. And this needs to be said because having senior women leaders is very important for our organization. How do you see your roles? Because I look at you as examples, for a lot of young women who are coming into this industry or coming to our company. How do you look at this? Do you see something important happening around you?
It's a wonderful experience. I have been associated with Lendingkart for over 7 years. In fact, I would say here, I have never discerned myself, as a woman leader. I personally believe that leadership is all about a trait and does not depend upon the gender.
Absolutely.
I have enjoyed this journey. And at LK, actually, the thrust or we believe in the meritocracy. And that is not limited to the leadership level. Rather, that is the core value is evident across the hierarchies.
Right. What you, Kiran?
So I strongly believe that women leaders are a requirement for the 21st century. You can't imagine a 21st century without, seeing women leaders being a part of it. You'll pick up any industry today, whether it's media, marketing, Hollywood, Bollywood, cricket for that matter.
Yep.
Look at the women's cricket team.
Absolutely.
So I think women are, raising the bar, crossing the, overcoming the roadblocks, the barriers, and financial industry is not an exception, So while, whatever time that I have spent at Lendingkart, I haven't really, felt that I have been treated differently just because I'm a woman leader. So I think that talks, a lot. And Lendingkart has a similar philosophy where they want to, encourage talent, they want to encourage intelligence, and it's not about gender. So it's an inclusive environment which allows you to be authentic, creative, and at the same time be responsible for what you're supposed to deliver. So I think that's great. That's something that allows someone to be, oneself and deliver the best.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And both of you have had pretty long careers already, right? Many years of experience. Have you ever experienced gender bias in any of your previous professional experiences?
No, not at least to me, or at least nobody has expressed that way to me, that because I am a woman, you will not get this role or you cannot be promoted. I mean, I've been fortunate enough that I didn't have to go through all this. But yes, we hear a lot of things, we see a lot of things. And my take on that is that I think women have to learn to stand up and, come up those barriers and not just look at it as any other challenge. Today you have business targets, today you have other targets to meet in the organization, and look at this as one of the targets which you have to achieve and overcome it. I mean, when you do it once, people will realize around you and things will start changing and evolving. So I think I give a lot of credit to such women who have gone through all this and still have learned, managed to come at the leadership position. I mean, I'm sure you would know, I mean, there are so many case studies that we read and people get take that as a learning and inspire. So I think yes, it's a yes and a no. But yes, it definitely doesn't leave people to stay vulnerable. I think people have started looking at it and taking that as an inspiration. I mean, we have to really appreciate the fact that women have also started talking about it.
Right.
I mean, there was a point where nobody was even talking about it. So today, the very fact that women have become comfortable talking about what they have gone through. I mean, me too, hashtag me too. It's not easy to stand up and tell the world that this is something that happened to me. So I think the
absolutely.
world is becoming a place where people are able to express themselves, and I think that really demonstrates and reflects that yes, the gender biases is not here to stay for long.
Yeah. Kumudini, how about your experience?
So I would say that despite both of us have not faced this challenge, but yes, somehow we are conscious of this fact that till date these things exist, and there are people, there are women leaders, in fact, at a junior level, at a very senior level also, people have faced this kind of the biasness, and that affects in a very adverse manner, that affects you as an individual also. Right. In fact, yesterday only I was reading about this lady, Miss Chopra, who is heading this SICOA as the managing director. In fact, the things were not different for her. She has also taken she has also faced the similar issues when she had taken a plunge into the VC industry, which is considered as a old boys
Club. Yeah.
Right. But I would say one thing over here. We should look ourselves as the professional. We should not, why we are making a distinction, I'm a woman or he's a, this is a male. That distinction should go away rather. I would say that, if we are going to consider ourselves as professional, work very hard, stay relevant, I think these distinctions, it's a matter of time, these distinctions will go away. I would like to mention one more thing, how can we make a difference? To my, if we are going to make some modification while nurturing our girl children, things are going to change. In fact, I would like to take a leaf from the Cheryl Sandberg's book.
Yeah.
If a little girl is told that she is bossy, she should be told again that she has leadership skills.
Oh, very interesting perspective.
Thank you.
Right. No, as a father to a daughter, I think that's very interesting for me to also. I'll definitely look up that book and read about it.
Thank you.
So it's not just upbringing about girl child. I mean, it also has to reciprocate to your boys who are growing. So I mean, I being a mother of a boy, I sometimes really feel that while I have always been supporting women and no women have to get this right. I think eventually by the time he grows, probably we'll have conversations around Men's Day and men's getting equal opportunity. So I think it's very important as we become more conscious about women and in the space that they need and the recognition that they need. At the same time, we should not demean, the other gender. It's very important to have that healthy balance. So I think it's not just for a girl child, but also for boys who are growing. Their parents have a larger responsibility to, ensure that as they grow, they don't look at, a girl or a woman or another gender as an alien.
Correct.
And don't look at it, don't become over conscious about it. I don't overdo anything.
Correct.
Have that balance maintained.
Sure.
So
Very, very valid point. And this is from your perspective, the way you see. What about other people seeing you? Have you seen people being uncomfortable having women in senior roles, and especially in these industries like finance and legal, which are traditionally one very male dominant, so to speak, and also very hierarchical? Like senior counsels being treated like deities, almost like everybody is going around, stuff like that. So have you seen this aspect where people are not comfortable, like senior women, etc.?
So, Ram, I would say that, it's all about the mindset. Things are changing globally. Over here also in India, this may take some time, like it is very stereotype. Okay, fine, this merger and acquisition, this is meant for a man. It's a tough job, but, considering the pace at which the women are, like taking the positions at the leadership level, the way there is a change in the education systems, the parents are getting, all the more conscious about the education and financial independence of the children. It's a matter of time. Things are going to change in India also. So this is, like as I have mentioned that, like who is a managing director, she has also taken a plunge in the VC industry, which is considered as old men, old boys club. Things are very much changing over here.
Yeah. How about you, Kiran?
So, like I mentioned earlier, just going back to that same reference point, that today finance is no exception. Like any other industry, you will see women have been, taking up the leadership position. I mean, while yes, they were very handful in the past, but today if you see, there are so many women just, going up the ladder, and not just because they are, a woman and getting that as an exception, but because they have proved it basis their talent, basis their intelligence, basis the results that they have brought. I mean, you talk about, people like Shikha Sharma or Naina Lal Kidwai or anybody or any of your SBI Indra Nui. So, I mean, and not just in India, but across the globe, you will see.
Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, for me, finance is no exception. And as and when women get to know about opportunities available in the financial sector, they are jumping, grabbing and taking it. So it's, one, yes, getting to know about opportunities, having a fair, awareness about the opportunities that are available. And at the same time, overcoming the barriers if there are any. And I'm sure barriers in careers is not just limited to a particular gender. I mean, even a man has to, perform, deliver consistently, repeatedly. So I think that's something even a woman does. And like I said earlier, it is based on merit and not gender anymore. So I think over a period of time, this gender gap is going to narrow down for sure, and not limited to financial industry. I mean, to look at the entrepreneurs today. So, I mean, I've started watching Shark Tank because my son started enjoying Shark Tank. He really likes the negotiation and he's learned EBITDA and all. So, I mean, you see so many women coming up and they come from a background where they did not have any support. They had so many other challenges. Family was not supporting. They didn't have financial support. But I think they've learned to overcome. So I think that's a very strong message and a portrait of how the women are evolving, and they are no more as an exception.
Yeah, I think absolutely right. And as women are doing all these things and they are, breaking new ground and, climbing new peaks, etc. And you made a very valid point. So mindset, if somebody has a mindset of being troubled by seeing a woman in a senior position, it's their problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have no choice but to change their mindset.
You deal with it.
Absolutely. There is no apology coming their way. Yeah, right? And I think you also mentioned all these big names, public figures. They're obviously inaccessible to most, right? And especially young girls who are coming out of college and joining workforce presently. For them, people like you are the role models. Right, because they see you daily in the office, they see you carry about your work and doing whatever things that are required to be done. Those experiences and those, what they see and what they learn from that, I think that's a lot more crucial, probably than seeing, let's say, a public figure. Yeah. I mean, you might read about it or you might see on television once in a while, but somebody whom you see on a daily basis going about, really doing big things like mergers and acquisition. We just acquired Upwards and you played a big role in putting all that together. Those are the things I think would be really, really, of importance to all the young girls who are coming into Lendingkart for sure, right? Let's switch tracks now. I think it was important to have this conversation. I'm really cool that I'm getting to speak with both of you. But let's now get into the stuff that pays our salaries.
Definitely.
Right. Legal and compliance is something that may be filled with a lot of myths, maybe, and all that. A lot of people have their own judgments and own opinions, for that matter, depending on their own experiences. But how do you think has the legal and compliance landscape changed over the years? And since you've come from the banking background, is there anything specific that you would like to add to that?
So yes, the compliance landscape has definitely scaled up big time. But yes, if I have to compare it with a bank, I mean, a very simple example to make it very relevant. I mean, imagine you growing up and now your kids growing up.
Yeah, huge difference. Oh my God.
So what you achieved, what you achieved, or the level of understanding and maturity that you would have achieved at X particular age,
Yeah.
I think they're already there.
Oh, big time.
Single digit age figure, and they're already there. So
Correct.
I think from a compliance landscape perspective, to compare a bank
With a
and
fintech.
with a fintech,
Yeah.
I think that's the difference, because banks got regularized in early 1930s, and fintechs are now, which as a booming industry. So I think yes, that's the difference. But at the same time, it's not that fintechs will take that many years to mature. So I mean, today you look at anything, whether you look at your governance, monitoring, reporting, businesses, or you talk about your controls, or you talk about your critical roles like a CFO, CRO, CCO. I think the regulators have not left any stone unturned.
Yep.
They have issued circulars right from who is going to be a CFO, who is going to be a CRO, what are the roles and responsibilities. You need to have a CISO. There are times circulars which have dictated saying, no, you have to have this role and you have to have minimum this qualification and experience. I mean, it's to take care of the business interest and the customer's interest. But I think you look at anything, whether you talk about business sustainability, you will see circulars around liquidity risk management. You will see circulars around investments, about provisionings, about asset liability management. You look about consumers. I mean, the regulators, irrespective of which regulatory industry you look at, they have not left any area unturned. They will talk about being fair to the customer, being transparent with the customer. You have to have all disclosures on the website, on the app. If possible, probably go home and tell them what they are doing. So, you pick up any areas, and the regulators have realized that no, if not all, at least give a broad framework to the entities, the organizations. At the same time, don't hold them back. Don't act as a barrier. So I think that's a matured behavior of the regulator. Also, they've become very consultative to, if you see, that was also announced in the recent budget, where they said that all regulators are going to act, in a consultative manner, where they will first release a draft saying, hey, this is what we are proposing and planning to, release for this particular industry, fintech or NBFC or bank or HFCs. And they will ask not just the related industry to give feedback, but also common public. Yeah. I think that's the biggest example of being inclusive today. Imagine a regulator who 15 years back was just dictating, saying, do this with immediate effect.
Yeah.
So I think
world of difference.
That's a change in compliance landscape. And what does this result into for a compliance professional? It's no more an annual activity or checklist activity. It's an ongoing thing. Today you go home, by the time you go to sleep, there's a circular release. Morning. And compliance is not something that only the compliance function will, do.
Right.
The other fact is compliance is always a second line of defense. So the role of compliance is to educate the respective functions, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's operations, whether it's credit, saying this is the regulation, so you need to change your modus operandi, change your website, change your application, ask for this information, capture, don't ask for this information, don't save this, save this. So I think the role of compliance cuts across the length and breadth of the organization. Yeah. And that really, is slowly, gradually evolving as one of the critical pillars. And that's why I think the regulator also realized and released a circular last year saying that, no, you have to have an independent compliance function set up with a chief compliance officer, because that's how the entire ecosystem will be managed with the help of a independent compliance function who will act as a consultant to the regulator, to the business. So I think the compliance landscape has completely changed from just one person to an independent function, and also bringing in a lot of value add.
But so compliance is a thing which a lot of people look at as a roadblock. In the normal daily business function or tech development or whatever, people, oh my God, I have to go through this compliance thing now. Let me check what the checklist is or whatever. I don't think that's true. I personally don't think that's true, because I think we also have to change our perspective of how do we look at compliance. Maybe it's time to look at it more as an enabler. What do you think?
So, very, very relevant feedback. I mean, I would say compliance is, looked at it more from irritation and, disturbing function, where
भी करना है
कुछ
यार
चल
अभी।
रहा है तो वो आके बोल देंगे नहीं चलना, नहीं ये नहीं चल
ये मना
सकता
करने वाले
है।
लोग हैं।
So I'll give you a very, very, relevant example, which probably you'll be able to relate to on a day-to-day basis. I mean, anybody who wants to start driving a car, you first have to learn to drive, have a car, and get a license.
Yes.
It doesn't end there, right? So the purpose is that you want to drive, go from one place to another, take it to office every day, or go on a long road trips. Now, there is an ongoing compliance. While we don't realize, but there is an ongoing compliance. Your car has to have a POC, it has to have insurance, you have to wear a seat belt.
Yep.
Now see, even here the compliance has evolved. Once upon a time, there was no concept of seat belt. ठीक है? अब seat belt है, फिर driver seat belt, then rear seat belt, then now even the back passengers have to have seat belts. So that's how compliance has evolved. What is it? This is compliance.
And for your own safety.
So this is for your own safety. Now there are also compliances for the others who are using the same road. So you have to follow the traffic signals. You have to stop when it's red. You have to give indicators when you have to go left or right. There are lane disciplines that you have to follow. So I think that's how one has to look at compliance. It's not just for the other's safety. It's for your own safety as well. Because the idea is, the understanding is, the objective is that you're going to run this business in long run, and you're just not here for a shortcut, meet with an accident, and then sit at home or be in the hospital. So I think look at it from that perspective. I think this is the easiest, simplest example that I could, think of, because compliance otherwise is a very dry and a very, difficult subject to relate to.
I think if everybody follows the rules, traffic problems will go away.
See, we all say that, but do we really follow? So that's the job of compliance, and that's the challenge, We all know that if we follow traffic rules, probably there will be less traffic on the road, there will be less accidents, there will be less congestions. But does everybody do that? That's why you have traffic police. And I think, let me call myself a traffic police havaldar, who will stop people on the road saying that you're not wearing your seat belt, or, bikers, why are you not wearing helmets? Now, just to give an example, now when I stop people saying, where is your helmet? You have to wear a helmet. I mean, you only have to wear a helmet. Just because it's a compliance requirement, I can't wear a helmet because I'm telling you to wear a helmet.
So I think let's change your designation now. Kiran is no longer compliance head, she's superintendent.
Yes.
Of compliance.
As long as people, really agree to comply, I'm okay to be called anyway. Even if it's a traffic havaldar.
Okay, sir. Salute. So now coming to legal. Kumudini, in your experience at Lendingkart, I mean, legal is a happening field, in my opinion. There's so many things that go on. And tell us some interesting stuff, some of the very interesting tasks that you've handled at Lendingkart.
So Ram, as I have mentioned that I joined this organization 7 years ago, and every day I would say that there is always a new challenge, there is a new learning. Things, because when I joined this organization, the company, company was in the process of raising the Series B. And the company was growing exponentially. So I assumed the responsibility of that we should sail this growth journey safely. At the same time, being the general counsel and being at the leadership position, so there was due responsibility on me that I have to contribute in a meaningful manner to the growth of the organization. Parallelly, I have to, as Kiran is here. So initially, I was required to set up the compliance culture within the organization. That is the backbone of any organization if the company has to grow. It is not only about the survival, right? It is mandatory, company, Lendingkart specifically when there is a private equity, when the company has, I would say that serious plans to go for, expansion. So the responsibility was, first thing is to set the compliance culture within the organization. And the second thing was to set up the policies and the procedures. But at the same time, it should not affect the growth of the organization. Yes. That was a challenging task for me. If you will reach to a business guy, for example, you're talking to the CPO, you will say that this is what is required. Considering that financial sector, this fintech is a highly regulated sector. So every strategic move has to be aligned with the regulatory requirements, whether it comes to the diversification, funding, expansion, acquisition, and everything. And when you approach to the business guys, at times it becomes difficult to put your point across, That is considered, or you are always taken as, now legal has come, there is going to be delay, or they are going to say that you can't do this. Right? Or they are going to put some sort of the covenants which is going to delay the execution of the documents. But at the same time, if you're empathetic, I think this quality has helped me a lot to overcome this bridge, to overcome this challenge, or to strike a balance between the legal and the business interest. Whenever I have approached the business guys, so I was always empathetic. They also have a responsibility to expand and to carry on the business. Of course, I can't force them that every time they have to look at from the legal perspective. That is my responsibility. So what I have started doing, this is a requirement. What is the end result that you want to achieve? Accordingly, I have strategized myself. This is how we can, this is how we can ensure that we are legally compliant. We are complying with the regulatory requirements. At the same time, that is not affecting the growth of the organization.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of learning that is required on the business side or tech side, whichever other team for that matter. I always tell my team is that before you take a contract to the legal team, read the contract yourself.
Correct.
A lot of people just see, okay, clause A, B, ये तो लीगल का काम है नहीं ये आप भी पढ़ सकते हो आप भी अपना ओपिनियन बना सकते हो and then I think it's good that for example when we had a lot of these contracts for marketing it was good that your team for example would mark up contracts and back this is for user feedback. This is not legal. This is you have to decide what is this. This is the entire thing is not legal, and that was so good because then we were able to look. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, this is while it's written in a contract, but it's a business decision. Right.
Correct.
So you make that decision, work with the legal team, and then the entire thing comes. And then it was so quick.
Correct.
There was no unnecessary back and forth and whatnot. So I think that's what is required.
You have to know. You have to draw that line that what is negotiable and what is non-negotiable. So I think the moment you have clarity there, then you don't look at these sub-functions like legal and compliance as roadblocks.
Now this is from an internal perspective. There is also an external perspective, and compliance and legal are also our first defense, so to speak, especially against fraud. And there are so many bad actors out there. Basically, like recently we came across an app which was of a luxury car, and which was asking people to watch videos and earn money and whatnot, and through Telegram channels. They're obviously a fraud. To us, it looked like fraud, but there were obviously people who believed that was right, and they were putting money and what. When you see something like that, how do we deal with something like this? Because there's so much happening. People are misusing digital media because the access is so easy. Anybody can come up and put a video on YouTube.
Correct.
And YouTube is a platform. They're not going to take responsibility for it. So naturally, because they're a public platform. What's your view, and how do we deal with all this nonsense now?
These, these kind of the practices, these kind of the pernicious practices are very rampant these days. Though I would say that in this era, when technology is a boom, but when it is being used to serve your vested interest, it becomes lethal.
Yeah.
Right. Because in these cases, we sacrifice the interest of the society at large.
Yes.
So that's an abuse. That's a wrong against the society at large. When, of late, we have also faced the similar challenges, right? So quick action is very much required because the delay is not only going to harm or affect the company, that is also going to affect the society at large, and the harm is going to be irreparable. So, in order to, I would say that for solving this issue, we went ahead and we adopted for a multi-pronged approach. We reach out to the concerned social media very actively, and we have also reached out to the enforcement agencies for a quick action. So that way we were able to manage this issue. But I would say one thing over here, these things will keep coming up. We have to look for the long-term solutions. I think through customer education and awareness, this problem can be resolved to a larger extent, and all of us have to make a concerted effort to achieve this.
Yeah, because when I saw those apps, somebody saying that earn every day on Lendingkart, they're utilizing our trademarks, they're utilizing our brand ambassador's image. That's straightforward fraud. I can see that, but I can also see people engaging with stuff like that. They think that, today I can make 100 rupees, tomorrow 500, and then suddenly they're defrauded with so much. And unfortunately, they think it's Lendingkart. It's not Lendingkart. That app is not Lendingkart. It is somebody who is acting in a
Misusing
completely
your
it.
company's
Absolutely.
name.
Okay, that's quite interesting. But moving forward now, looking at the immediate future, what kind of trends do you see in when it comes to fintechs and regulations immediately, like in the next few months, for that matter, or this year?
This is what we have seen in the last decade, and in fact, that is an ongoing practice. So multiple changes have taken place. The regulator is becoming all the more active. Things are changing, so the law is. In fact, she would also agree. When it comes to the financial space, the regulator is all the more active. There are multiple reasons behind it. They want to see, like what is causing the disruption in the industry, why the fintechs are gaining the popularity in such a short span. So they want to somehow, through by way of the regulations, by way of the control mechanism, they want to ensure that the risks and the interest of the consumers are protected. So, they have realized the importance of, okay, fine, there should be some regulation around it. In fact, that is going to help the fintechs also, that is going to provide the certainty in the environment. These are the regulations that we have to comply with. And this is how we are going to carry on our business. Now, coming back to your question with respect to what kind of the piece of legislation that we are expecting, I think data privacy law is pending for a long time. We are expecting that we are going to get the nod.
This year, 2023,
This year,
you expect that to happen?
We are expecting. This is an expectation in the industry.
Sure.
Like I would say one thing over here. In fact, in the recently released digital and lending guidelines, RBI has also acknowledged the need to safeguard and protect the privacy rights of the customers. In fact, there are overarching provisions which are forming the part of the digital guidelines. That is all about, like how are you going to obtain the consent of the customer, getting the information from the customer, storage of the data, what kind of the information you can gather from the customer, for how long you can keep it, purging of the data. There are, I would say that like they have focused on each and every part in order to safeguard and protect the interest of the consumer. So that is also gaining the importance. With the passage of
I
time.
think it will be very interesting to be in the room when you discuss these things with Giri. Our CEO.
Because
When he has to make all the tech changes just to ensure that all the legislation is taken care of.
So whenever we receive any agreement from Giri's side, like we are very specific about, okay, fine, whether this is in compliance with the digital lending guidelines or do we need something else? Like are we required to make a markup? Are we required to, redline this thing? Or should we reach out to Giri, to get the clarity, what kind of the information we are going to save in our systems?
Yeah.
So that is there.
Right. I think data privacy is also very close to his heart.
Yes.
And from a compliance standpoint, what do you see in the...
So data privacy, yes, it has become very close to everybody's heart because we all understand the value of data. I mean, there are countries who have started considering data as asset and putting it as a part of the balance sheet. So, I mean, that's the kind of weightage and importance the data has today. Yes, so from a fintech perspective, what I anticipate is we will see changes coming around KYC for the customer, because for fintech, since we, are bringing disruptions, through technology and through online platforms, giving the customer what the customer is looking for, whether it's a loan, whether it's, a short-term loan for long-term loan, MSME loan. So I think KYC is something that, we will see some changes coming. That was also announced in the recent budget. DigiLocker, promoting DigiLocker, making, enhancing the features of DigiLocker and extending it not just for individual but also non-individual. That's another area to keep an eye upon, because, and that's both these changes that will come will have a positive impact for Lendingkart at least, definitely.
Wow.
So that's one. Data protection, Kumudini has already covered, so not repeating that. But I think we have to be mindful that anything that we do, and because we are a fintech, it is going to impact us. Whether it's going to be neutral or positive, or it's going to be a little painful to adopt because it's a new regulation and compliance initially comes as a roadblocker. That's something that we will see as, we hear from the authorities. Another thing that, I foresee is we will see a lot of clarity that the regulators will bring in by consolidating, various regulations that they have. Today, there are a lot of overlapping, there are gray areas. So, in order to increase the penetration for MSME sector or even the unserved sector, the co-lending arrangement or, any other such business models that currently are there with limited regulations and limited to only PSL sector, I think that's where we can, anticipate that we will hear something from the regulators, and yes, fintech will be able to leverage upon it. So these are the couple of things that we definitely, can keep our eyes and ears open for.
Very exciting times ahead, exciting year ahead for us.
Yes, so like you said, exciting times for Giri.
But let's talk about data privacy and data protection aspect. And Manish, president of Lendingkart, has a very interesting way to put it. He's saying that data is the new electricity.
Correct.
It's not just the earth, because it's moving so fast and it's changing quite often. Keeping abreast of that, and especially we are such a data-led organization. A lot of our decision making is data-driven. So some of these compliance aspects, and is there a trade-off with certain business insights and analytics? Does that happen, and how do you sort of overcome that?
So, to be honest, Ram, I think data analytics, data insights have always been a part of driving business. I mean, if you see the evolution, initially it was a feedback form or a customer survey, where the teams used to go in the field and take feedback.
Oh, we still do it in marketing?
I'm sure you would, but the percentage, the contribution would not be so high, of course. Then it moved to slowly, gradually, it graduated to telemarketing, telecalling, where they used to call and take feedback on the recorded lines from the customer. Thanks to technology, thanks to internet, now it's all with the snap of a finger. You send the link, customer will say yes, no, or just rate you after on a link, give you a rating. So I think businesses have been driven by data analytics. It's just that, the way this has evolved, the negative side of it or the backdrop of it has been because there has been so many data that has been collected. People didn't know or how it could have a negative impact in terms of identity theft, in terms of banking theft. So I think that's why the regulator stepped in, saying that no, hey, you use it for your business intelligence and business growth. But then you have to store this data in a particular fashion. You can't just leave it on the table or in the back office or in the box or in the drawer. That's when they started getting little, stringent about saying that, oh, you stop collecting this data or you stop saving this data. But the regulators also today understand that that's not how the industry can operate. We are developing so many, apps and platforms which will require data to perform AI. You look at the blockchain. If there is no digital footprint, how will the blockchain work? How will the AI run if you don't have the data? So I think the key for any industry today is to anonymize the data. The moment you de-link it with an individual, the moment you de-link Kiran Singh, PAN number so-and-so, Aadhaar number so-and-so, and just look at my data as a female, gender category, as an age group. I will not reveal my age, but into an age group or something like that. A working woman staying in a metro city. Sure. I think the moment you learn to do that, I think you will take care of the regulation. So I think that's the key. How you do it, the ifs and buts and the nuances. Let's go to Giri. Okay.
And also data sciences team probably should be well aware of these.
See, what is the expectation from data science? They need to bring in data insights. What is the trend? Where do you see your concentration? They don't want to know what is Kiran doing, or what does she eat or where does she stay. Probably if the food industry would want to know, but not as a Kiran Singh, but as a consumer.
Sure.
So that's why I said the moment you're able to anonymize the data and not show it as a Kiran Singh or a Kumudini or a Ram, I think they will be able to continue and it will not act as a roadblock. But yes, there will be some ifs and buts because the regulations will have to take care of customers' interests. So like Kumudini mentioned, you'll have customer consent, you will be able to only save some data, some you will have to just let go. So all those rules and ifs and buts will be there. But I think the key is that you will not have to really do away with your analytics, and it's not that you will not be able to do, get insights of the data. So I think that fear we should overcome, because that even the regulators are not aiming at, because they understand unless there is analytics, data insight, fintechs will not be able to operate, and fintechs have been, someone who have been bringing disruption in the banking industry, so, and that's the USP that they have been able to bring in data insights through AI. So I think we should overcome the fear that, how will we do it? I think we should focus our energy and time in how do we anonymize the data.
Yeah, that's a very good point and phenomenal stuff, I think. But this is all internal. I mean, you have complete control on doing some of these actions. But at times we also rely on external partners and vendors, who are in our ecosystem, in the financial ecosystem, or maybe not for that matter sometimes, but they are very much a part of what we are doing. How do we control that aspect? I mean, internal to us, all our systems, processes, we can be 100% compliant and be absolutely sure of it also. But when it comes to partnering with external ones, how do we deal with that?
Suram, I would like to say over here, there are ways and the means through which we can control by having a robust vendor empanelment policy, right? So in Lendingkart also, we do have the policies and the procedures in place that clearly provides about, like before empaneling any vendor, there should be a proper due diligence and no dispensations are allowed. This is not limited to, what the credentials of the vendor, rather, like from the IT sec perspective also, what kind of the IT measures or the security perspectives he has. So those things are also taken into account before going ahead and, like onboarding of that particular vendor. This is how we protect and safeguard the interest of our consumers. And apart from that, I would like to mention over here, like by building the relationship of the trust and the transparency with the consumer. When you go and disclose the consumer, this is how we are going to utilize your data. That is also going to give the comfort level to the consumer. Apart from that, I would say that, if the company, if there's going to be a proper legislation in place, that is going to protect and safeguard the interest of the organization, that is going to lay down the clear guidance around the storage, purging of the data, utilization of the data, and other things. That is also going to give a lot of comfort level to the customer, because like there are going to be the regulations around it, how this data should be utilized, to whom the company or an organization can go ahead and share the data, and if the data is being shared, how that data should be dealt with by an external party. And apart from that, a strong compliance management system. This is equally important, that is also going to give a lot of comfort level. If I've shared my data in terms of the governance, in terms of the compliance management system, my data is properly secured with the company.
So do you also envisage a situation where you would be auditing the external vendors, partners, and some sort of checks on their documents and things like that? Some part of it we are already doing, right?
Yeah. So Ram, this is what, as I have mentioned, that there is a proper vendor empanelment policy. So there, in terms of the policy and the procedures, it is not only the credentials that is being checked before onboarding. So there is a proper team in place, who collects the information about the vendor. And when it comes to the, like when it comes to the IT contracts or IT part, whenever we go ahead and outsource the IT stuff, so then we always reach out to Giri. Okay, fine. From the IT to check whether they are compliant, qualifying in terms of the IT sec perspective or not. Are there any red flags around it? If there are any red flags, the no concessions are there. Right, there
Zero
is
tolerance.
No, there are complete no. Okay, fine, we can't go ahead with this. So that way, company is very clear about the policy on the vendor empanelment.
Anything you want to add, Kiran?
No, so I agree with Kumudini. I mean, while, we have to ensure when we outsource to a third party, how the third party is going to deliver the services, etc. I mean, just to put in a context, if you put your child in a daycare, I mean, you want to do all the due diligence. Is my child going to be safe, stay safe? Is somebody going to take care of my child? Hygiene, etc., etc. Everything. You go over and above. Probably at home, you will not look at hygiene. But when you give it to the daycare, you want to ensure there is hygiene and there is this and there is that.
Yeah.
So I think when we outsource to third parties, that's how we look at things. Because the regulator very clearly says, boss, you do it or you can ask a third party do it. But for me, you are responsible.
Right.
So I think keeping that angle in mind, when we outsource any of the activities to a third party, one is the data aspect. The other is, how is it going to impact my customer's experience, my entity's reputation? So I think those are critical factors. And that's why, when we get into the agreement execution, we don't really want to, get into a negotiation mode, because there are certain things where there is a zero tolerance.
Yeah.
Because A, it comes from the regulator where they've said this has to be a part of your agreement. B, like I said, my child, I'm putting in a daycare. I will not compromise for hygiene or any other thing.
Right.
So, I mean, then certain things become non-negotiable, because end of the day, it is my neck on the line.
Sure.
So, while I'm outsourcing, because probably I don't have the expertise the agency does have, or the agency is better placed to deliver, or it will help me save cost, time, bring in efficiency. There could be multiple reasons altogether. But end of the day, it is my neck on the line.
Sure.
And give something which is, part of me. I think it's very important for us to ensure and not to compromise on any of the red flags. So I think that's where, when it comes to agreement, we become really, like a roadblock, because if anything goes wrong, that agreement is going to save your life, whether it's from the regulator or from the external world.
No, very
so
true. And I
that's
think,
how you have to look at it.
And you also want to work with vendors and partners who are already well aware of such requirements.
Correct.
If somebody wakes up one day, oh, ऐसा भी करना होता है क्या? भाई तू तो रहने दे. ऐसा नहीं होगा.
So what we do, like there is always a first question whenever anyone approaches us. This is the arrangement we are executing into. The first question that is usually being asked by the legal, are they providing these kind of the services to any other financial institutions? So that is going to give you some sort of the comfort level they are aware of. They have the cognizance of these regulations.
करते हैं कि नहीं करते, वो पता तो होगा.
करते हैं नहीं करते हैं,
वो
and
हम
पता
check
है
कर
या
लेंगे
नहीं.
करते हैं कि नहीं, but पता तो होगा इसका.
पता होगा.
It's like, when we have to go and buy something for, whether it's food, jewelry, or, restaurant, we ask for feedback, we look for the rating. It's the same, na? I mean, if I'm giving something which is near and dear to me and part of me, I want to be sure, whether he or she, this entity has done something like this. Maybe not for a fintech, but at least for some other financial institution. थोड़ा बहुत कुछ तो experience हो. आप किसी एकदम नए नवेले को तो नहीं दे दोगे.
ऐसे किसी रेस्टोरेंट में जाएं, जमीन पे पड़ा हुआ खाना झाड़ के वापस दें.
Correct.
अब तो हम
आप घर में गिरा हुआ खा सकते हैं, लेकिन
3
बाहर
सेकंड रूल लगा के बाहर नहीं. फिर जाके 10 लोग को बोलेंगे उस रेस्टोरेंट में मत जाना.
मत जाना.
No, very cool. And one of the things that I have done in all my organizations where I've worked is I have utilized my colleagues in legal and compliance as a threat.
As a threat? Oh,
Our vendors.
very surprising. You know why?
देख भाई ये कर ले, नहीं तो हमारे compliance वाले आ जाएंगे.
आ जाएंगे. ये कर ले, अच्छा, otherwise आ जाएंगे.
Then we will say that, and I think some of my team members also do this. It has to go through legal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, fine. Let us know when they are okay with it.
So see, we're not always a roadblock for you.
Not at all. Very much. I completely believe this is something that I've told a lot of people, and you are aware of this, right? Because when we were doing contracts, etc.,
Correct.
I've always told people that look at this as an enabler.
Yeah.
This is going to, save a lot of hassle in the future.
Correct.
Be compliant now. Take care of the legal issues. You will be so happy few months down the line. You will not have to worry. अच्छी नींद अगर रात को आनी चाहिए तो compliance में लीगल में बिलीव करो. मेरा तो सिंपल कहना है.
And that is going to give you some line of the protection also.
Absolutely.
Yes, we have got the legal opinion. This agreement or this particular document was vetted by the legal department. That is going to give the comfort level to the business also. Okay, fine. At least I'm not doing something which is at all prohibited, or there are certain restrictions. That way I've got the comfort level from the legal and the compliance department. That way I'm in and I would say that I'm in a comfort zone.
Yes. No, I think a lot of people use that too ना. ये क्यों क्या? Legal है तो हाँ बोला था.
In fact, like these days, what
approved
is
by legal, this is approved by compliance.
So Kiran, I would say one thing over here. In fact, like as Ram has mentioned, we, both of us, who are considered as the roadblockers, that we are making the lives easier for the people, right, within the organization. This can't be done. Why? Because the legal head compliance have said no.
That's good fun. Now before we end the podcast, I want to ask you, Kumudini, especially, and AI is the new big thing that's happening, ChatGPT and all that. Do you think at some point AI is going to replace legal opinion?
Or the legal heads?
Or not legal heads, but okay, legal opinion by lawyers or something.
By lawyers, okay. So you're saying that whether, okay. So I would say one thing over here. Up to the time, AI is not taking the place of the regulators and the judges. We are going to be indispensable.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm expecting that, if AI can make my life easier, I will definitely would like to take a weeks off.
That's a very good answer. Phenomenal. I hope that AI allows you to take an extended weekend at least.
Thank you.
You're working
Wonderful.
too hard, for sure. Brilliant. This is so cool. Thank you so much, both of you, Kumudini and Kiran. It was lovely speaking with you. Thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you,
Ram, thank you. It's
so
a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks a lot for watching. Thank you for watching the Lendingkart show. All our episodes are available on our YouTube and Spotify channels. I'm Ram Deshpande, signing off. Take care. Bye-bye.